Welcome back, everyone. And with me today on the Agents to Owners podcast, I have co-founder of GNN Insurance, co-founder of Babylon Consulting and Babylon Podcast, Mr. Zack Gould. Zack, thanks for being here. Welcome to the show.
I love it. Great intro, good tone, and you've done this before.
Yeah, thanks, man. Appreciate it. I'm excited. I've always enjoyed our conversations, and those have come mostly because you've been so gracious with your time in the past of just reaching out to the agency force, telling them there's no left hook. I'm willing to talk about business development, which is a passion of yours, and so I've taken advantage of that a number of times, and you've definitely helped me. You always give something to consider, a different angle, very candid, very straightforward advice, and I've always appreciated it. So I'm also, as I've mentioned, it's just been so nice to see you getting involved a little more in some of our Facebook groups that we're involved in, which kind of got you on my radar for this show. So I'm looking forward to chopping it up with you a little bit today.
Awesome. Looking forward to it. Thank you.
Most people in our industry and most of my listeners are going to be aware of who you are. So we'll kind of skip the long background of Zack and GNN. So let's, I do want to just kind of cover, your story is so interesting to me because you've covered the entire life cycle of the business owner, insurance agency, ownership. So let's go back to what, you and Matt built a very successful agency, in my opinion, a relatively short amount of time. So let's talk about what are some of the keys to success of what GNN were.
Well, I'd be remiss if I didn't first talk about my partnership with Matt. I think that overall is such a key component to my specific journey. I know a lot of people that have done it solo. I admire their courage and their strength. I think a partnership is the best way to go. And I'm proud to still call Matt a really close friend of mine. And we bounce business off each other all the time. We bounce fatherhood off all the time, friendship. There's so much we talk about that's well beyond our business relationship. And we still work together, obviously, at Hill. But the key to success was really investing in our partnership. And I've probably said that so many times in so many podcasts. It might sound cliche, but what's the key to parenting is having a successful relationship with your spouse. Probably it's pretty similar. If you and your spouse are arguing all the time, I'm sure the kids are walking on eggshells. Well, Matt and I, we had our disagreements. I remember sharing some coffees with them that I really didn't want to be there. But, we always worked it out, and I love Matt, and we had a great partnership. So that's part one. And then part two was just really lighting an idea on fire. We had an idea. We put so much, energy into that flame. And we just made sure it never burnt out. And that idea was networking with referral partners. Every single day, every minute, every text was so focused on how do we get more referral partners or enrich our referral partners or love on our referral partners to better our agency. It was just that.
Yeah. I want to talk a little bit about the partnership. You guys, if I remember, were both very, basically the top producers with Liberty Mutual, where you guys got your insurance start. How was that? How did you two, kind of meld together? Because sometimes you would think there would be a little bit of bumping of heads, going on.
Well, he's got a bigger head than me, so I wouldn't want to do that. But listen, Matt and I, there's definitely a competition of who could sell more in the beginning, of course. And in the first year or two, it was probably 1 + 1 = 2. It's just like him selling, me selling, et cetera, et cetera. And spoiler alert, that's probably why we ended up in crazy debt, like early on in GNN. There's no surprise. I mean, we were a very successful partnership from a open and honest, candid relationship, but we weren't good leaders in the beginning. We're 25 years old.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, the smartest thing we did was just do it. But no, we didn't have like an org chart. And I didn't look at Matt and be like, you handle HR. No, we didn't do any of that. When we interviewed people, it was a freaking joke. I mean, we would both be selling to the person to come over. So no, in the beginning it was a joke, but eventually we found our way. We found how to do 1 + 1 = 3 or whatever cliche comment you want to make. We really understood what Matt is way better than me and where I can find my own lane. And we figured it out.
Yeah. Talk about how you scaled. I mean, you grew and grew and grew, and then you started adding. And then, as you just kind of pointed out, you didn't have an org chart, but somewhere along the lines, I imagine you did.
Yeah.
Say, you take this and I'll take this. How did you guys determine that?
Trial and error.
Yeah.
You know, I think there are parts of the business that Matt was better than me at that he probably didn't want to be better than me at, and vice versa. Like, there are some things we just kind of had to take charge of that. Like, I took charge of finances. Like, that's not my MO. I don't even run my finances at home. I don't enjoy it. But I ran it, and I tried to ensure that we kind of hit our targets, and I set targets, and I did budgeting and all this other junk. But where our leadership really turned is when we hired a coach. And we've talked a lot about this in the past, but we were maxed out on our line of credit from the bank, which is a very scary place to be. And I bet you there's a listener or two that's listening to your podcast today that will be maxed out in line of credit this coming year, especially with what's going on in the insurance industry. We were completely maxed out. So let me describe what maxed out of a line of credit means.
Yeah.
We had $300,000 in a line of credit. We had taken out $300,000 in 0 cents. We taken out exactly the amount. I'm not talking about 25 grand. I'm talking about 300,000. And we understood that we owed that money, but we had no idea how to get that money. And yet in 2015, we were selling millions of dollars of insurance plans every single year, new business. So we were looking at it being like, wow, we're selling so much. What are we doing wrong? Had a huge team. Everything was great. That's when we hired a coach, is when we couldn't afford it. So we took 4 months of no pay, Matt and myself. That didn't equal anywhere near 300,000, obviously, but we took 4 months of no pay to pay for the coach, basically, and other things of that nature, and make sure we didn't have to fire our staff. And 6 months later, we had completely paid off the entire $300,000 line. And I attribute all of that to coaching, organizational structure, getting Matt and I in our own lanes, but not really changing much about the business. We still focused on the same thing. We just really understood where Matt and I should be and who should be helping us.
How did you do that in such a short amount of time? You didn't cut payroll.
No, we did let go of 2 people in that time, but we closed a department with 2 people in it, to be clear. So we didn't have layoffs. We had I see this a lot in the insurance industry too, especially personal lines. We had a renewal department, and that department, pretty obvious, reach out to the clients, shop their rate, what have you. But when we analyzed it, we were like, actually, that's a loss leader, because we're reducing the amount of commission that we're bringing in intentionally. We're trying to shop policies and reduce their premium. So every success this renewal department had, and they had hundreds of successes a month, basically, was reducing our commission. Yeah. Now, we do need to reach out to the clients and shop their policies if they're upset, but we shouldn't do it proactively before they even ask. Sometimes, these people were in a fine spot. So it was a loss leader. We had to close the department. But that was, again, from coaching. We didn't see that. Our coach looked at it and was like, these financials don't make sense. So it really helped out in that part. But 2 people's payroll does not equal 300,000, nor does Matt and I reducing. I mean, Matt and I were taking exceptionally modest salaries at that point. I'm going all over the place, but I want to set the stage for you.
Yeah.
My wife was the breadwinner of our family for the first 8 years in business, I think. So she had a great career. She was a director of marketing, but we didn't make a lot of money here. We invested so much in the business. So the coach really aligned us and helped us get departments under us so Matt and I could really do what we do best, which was business development, marketing, referral partner relationships, and running the sales team. If it wasn't in those couple things, we didn't do it.
Yeah. So
So
that was that was around 2015. Is that when you guys kind of gave up
that's the last policy I sold.
Okay.
February 2015. Matt and I still know the date.
Wow. And one of the things that you helped me with that I was struggling with was how to break away from that production side of things. And I asked how that went for you guys, and you told me it took 4 times for us to finally do it, which was refreshing to me, and it made me feel better because that's what I kind of started to do. I'd come out, I'd go back in, I'd come out. So I think it's refreshing.
You've actually you've had the person on your show who was our sales producer. It was Monica.
Okay.
Monica Adwani was the first sales producer on the inside team that we hired. We kind of figured out how to transition, and we worked with her on a process that stuck. Monica eventually became our sales manager in that role over time. So it took a lot of time. She'll be the first person to say, like, we screwed up so many times early on trying to transition the business to her. Like, early on, I did what I think most agency owners do. It's like Brad comes in trying to buy a new home. I tee up the conversation, give it to Monica to quote, and then I call Brad back, and like Brad inevitably wants a change or two. And then I go back to Monica. I go back to Brad. I go back to Monica. Okay, I sell the policy. I give it to Monica. It's just a mess. Total mess.
Yeah.
I don't even know why she stayed with us in that time. We were awful. But eventually we kind of figured out, okay, my role really should be working with the referral partner, teaching them how to refer to Monica or anyone on the sales team. And I need to make sure that they know and trust that someone I hire on the sales team is very competent, very skilled, and they can even meet directly with that person. That ended up being a huge change.
I think it's a great thing for our audience to hear. That yes, of course, you went through some struggles, you went through growing pains, you went through figuring it out, because a lot of people, like myself, my first introduction to Matt and Zack was at an innovation conference where you have a videographer, you're on stage, you seem like you got everything together. And it's like, these guys are amazing. You hear they have X amount of premium. You didn't get to X amount of premium by happenstance. It didn't just happen by chance. It happened because you had a strategic plan. And as we talked to that we went for, you went for it.
We did. I've been in the other shoes before, meaning like I've watched somebody speak about their success and I've listened to it and I've been like, no way. Like, that can't happen in Minnesota. That can't happen in South Carolina. Nah, premiums aren't the same. Carriers, an XYZ ABC excuse, or even worse, maybe they just don't believe. And that's fine. That's fine. Like, I'm not forcing you to believe what we did. It makes no impact on my day. But when we got up on stage and talked about our plan to get 6,000 leads a year from referral partners, which we gave that speech a bunch of times. When you break it down, it's 500 leads a month. When you break that down, it's about 125 leads a week. We did it year after year after year after year. We only gave that speech when we were doing it.
Yeah.
We didn't give that speech because it was an idea of how you could do it. We gave the speech to saying we are doing it. And I think that's something that's just missed a little bit, is if you don't want to believe, that's okay. That's fine. But you probably should only get advice from someone who is literally doing it in the moment they're talking about it. we were giving that advice. I don't give that speech today. I'm not getting 6,000 leads right now.
Yeah.
But we were doing it right then.
Yeah.
And we gave the entire playbook. And I was proud of that moment because that was a free speech. It's not like I was being paid. And
Yeah.
actually, oddly enough, that was, I think it was 6 years ago to the day. We were in either San Diego or Vegas, or 5 years ago, maybe. I just came up in my memories this morning. San Diego
Really?
was, San Diego was 2019. So yeah, 5 years ago. Yeah.
Okay.
But
So let's stay on that a
mm,
little bit. And we talked about this briefly before, that a lot of it is simple math of that we want to get 6,000 leads. Is that a matter of reverse engineering of, well, how do we get that? We need a
yeah.
plan how we're going to get to this number.
hmm
So talk
hmm
about how you we're going to get there. Do we need 100 referral sources? Well, I mean, what does that look like?
Yeah. So let's break that down. Let's take a look at a different example first. Like my son and probably every one of his friends wants to make the NFL or the NBA or whatever. Okay. That's a great goal. I'm not going to tell him he can't, but I'm also like, I don't know how to help you, man. In order to make the NBA, you have to make your high school team. I don't know many NBA players that didn't make their high school basketball team. So, in order to make the high school basketball team, you have to do X. So you have to keep going back. So starting with 6,000 leads is nice and good, but if we're getting 10 leads a week, like that seems like too daunting to even focus on. It's just way too much. So you kind of have to break it down, and you kind of have to look at your agency and say, like, what are we best in the world at? What do we really do in our agency that I think that nobody else can do? And for 90% of the audience, they might not have that yet, and that's okay. But you should be looking at your best clients, the clients that just rave about you. And if it's your mom and dad, I'm sorry, but if it's somebody else, hopefully, like, someone that like really loves what you do, they write 5-star reviews. Every now and then they refer somebody, and you should interview that person about, what makes our agency tick? What about us why do you refer us? And get through the we're friendly, get through all this, that, and the other, but get some kind of script that makes sense and interview 5 to 10 clients, figure it out. So let me put this into perspective. We had our very first referral partner in mortgage was a gentleman named Keith. He referred us 2 leads in a week. This is back in like 2011, maybe. Yeah, this is a long time ago. He referred us 2 leads in 1 week. And I remember being like, Matt, I got like 2 leads from this guy. And it was like an email introduction, basically being like, da, 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 da. I had never met this guy before, but so I called him and I said, hey, Keith, you're a mortgage, why are you referring us? And he was just like, yeah, my other insurance guy didn't really understand the timeliness of a mortgage process. You guys clearly get it. One of my clients used you because a real estate professional, whatever. Point of the matter is I figured out, I was like, wow, this referral partner likes us because we're fast. So we created a company completely on speed in the beginning. We tested around with that idea. Eventually, like, we opened a company called Fast Track, and we went to referral partners and said, we're part of Fast Track at GNN. Like, you get your clients on the fast track to closing. It was so stupid, but we like did this. We had business cards and we had pamphlets. Trust me, it was weird, but we did this whole thing. We just kept tinkering. We kept tinkering with why do people refer us? Why do they love us? And eventually we came up with a script. So I'm really sorry to go on a tangent there, but I'm indirectly answering your question as like, we analyzed our agency and why people loved us. And then we kept reiterating that back to the referral partner until we gained serious traction, which was clearly the bobblehead campaign. That was the difference maker. And that too was just a random occurrence too.
Touch on, so you're growing this, you're growing this, sizable business. Talk about how you evolved as a leader. right? Because
I
I love this so much, because this is, we're talking about, this is, how most of us started. We started as a producer. We're driven. We're motivated. We're going after it. And then we evolve as a business owner. And
mm,
then, we have a team. Before you know it, you
mm,
have 4 staff, you have 7 staff, you have,
mm.
all of a sudden you got problems. Um, yeah. So how did you personally evolve into the leadership role?
in a in a messy way. I
Yeah.
mean, I think that you go through chapters and seasons of life, however you want to phrase it. I think from age 25 to 30, I was an awful leader, like abysmal. I think that I was so focused on my own success, meaning like how many sales I was bringing in, that I genuinely think back to my conversations. I always cared about people. I didn't do a good job showing it because I was more focused on the sales. And I think a lot of your people that listen are probably in that similar mode.
100%. I was.
Yeah, or were, whatever. But I think it changed for me a lot when I started to go into debt as a company level. Because that is my first sign of like failure, is I was like, God, I'm such a terrible business owner. Like, we're growing like a weed and I can't even manage an Excel spreadsheet. Like, what is wrong with me? So I started to realize like that was probably one of the first chinks in the armor that I had, because here I am. I was the national sales leader at Liberty Mutual, Fortune 100 company. And at 22 or 23 years old, I was the top rep. Like, so I'm just walking around like I'm God's greatest gift for a little while. And then we open up G&N at age 25. I'm the greatest. Like, here I am. I'm like Muhammad Ali at 25 here. And when people didn't get along with me early on, I had a very much a mindset, it's you, not me. And I'm not afraid to admit that. That was
Yeah.
absolutely true. Some of my early on employees are probably like, "Hey, he finally said it." But no, it's like it wasn't a good look. But when I started to go into debt, and then when I started to have kids, and I relied on my marriage a lot more to like take a look inside me, I took personality tests of myself. I started to understand like who I was as a person, where I make people pissed off, and where people lean in and really enjoy my company. And I just tried to avoid situations in my agency where I would naturally piss people off. I tried to get myself away from those situations, and I tried to die. So I ran the business development marketing side of the company. And there's no secret, that's where my passion is. I could talk
Yeah.
about that for 20 hours on this podcast and I would feel fired up at the end.
Yeah.
If you wanted to talk to me about sales process, I'm going to blow my brains out sometimes. I'm like, I don't really care what CRM you want to use. That's fine. Do it. Like, it doesn't, but that's not the right answer. That's not good leadership. So that's where Matt ran. And Matt was really, is really good at that. And I did not excel there. So I tried to avoid that. So I think you have to understand where you're good and avoid the situations
Correct.
where there's typically conflict.
Yeah. That's one of the strengths of having a partnership, right?
Correct.
Is you can maybe help avoid some of your weaknesses. I remember early on, I thought, I have, my situation is a little bit different. I was a producer in an agency, and then I ended up buying it out. And you went through all this of this sale, and then the first year was a baptism by fire. I won't get all into that, but what could go wrong did go wrong. Claims, criminal producer you had to fire. All this stuff. So I thought I went through hell. My first year of doing this, and I remember after that, I was like, "There's no way I'd want a partner." Because I was asked before, and then years later, maybe I got a little smarter. I thought, that might have been nice.
Yeah.
To ask about some things, because you're winging it, and for so many things, because you're winging it on your own. What should I buy this? Should we go with this program? What it is you're making? Should I hire this person? You have nothing else to bounce off of. So I think a partnership now, I would have been way better off. Somebody to balance out your weaknesses.
You do need that. And you also need someone to call you out
Yeah.
when you're offline. I think so. My marriage at home with Kristen, I always call her KG. So if I call her
Yeah.
KG, she's not KG, like she's not a
Yeah. Yeah.
KG
Yeah.
as an adjective. It's her name, KG. So um, KG and I have a really good marriage in that for a lot of reasons. But one of the best ways that is she knows the right time to really say to me, like, you're off track. Um, a lot of times it shows up right now with how I parent Mason. I'm way tougher on Mason than I am on my daughter, Emma. I mean, I don't think I'm the only parent that's
Yeah.
tougher on one than the other, but I am. And I need her to say to me, Zach, chill out. Like every once in a while. And she has permission to say it however she wants to say, but like
Yeah.
but I also need her to say it at the right time. Like I think in the moment it would be such a bad time. Like she'd be like, chill out. I'm like, no, I'm teaching him a life lesson here. You get out of here. Like it wouldn't work, right? But she knows, she's worked with me so long to know that. Matt in our partnership was beautiful for so many reasons, but one of the main reasons was Matt's understanding of when to approach me and be like, hey, like I don't like how you handled that. And
Yeah.
it didn't always relate. It didn't always end up in the best
Mm.
conversation, but the outcome was so good. And I think that partnerships where you can have conflict,
Yeah.
uh, and you can get through the conflict, the struggle just makes it sweeter. There's no other way to say it. I have had some of the most uncomfortable conversations with Matt where it's like nails on a chalkboard, where I'm giving him feedback that I don't really want to give him. I really don't, but I know it's for the better of him and vice versa. And I'm proud that I was able to do it. I'm proud of him that he was able to do it because we're both just way better human beings now because of the tough love we gave each other.
Yeah. I well, I I think a lot of us are like that, right? We're wired, especially, when in any type of sales or ownership, like we see the mission, we see the vision, and we're passionate about it, and we come to work fired up. Like, how do I get there? And we got a fire in our belly. And it took me a long time to understand why my team doesn't have that. I don't understand. It's like,
Yeah.
what do you mean? I mean,
They
why
didn't
don't
start their
you
own
want to
business,
do
man.
it that
Yeah.
way? Yeah.
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 So it took me, I don't know why. It took me a long time to figure out, oh, yeah, no, no, she's coming here 9 to 5 and she doesn't think like me,
Yeah. But she's
so
motivated or he's motivated for very different reasons.
yeah.
All right. You're correct. I think in a sales role, you're hopefully hiring people that are closer to your behavior.
Yeah. Driven.
Inside or outside, you kind of hope that 5:15 comes, they kind of just handle that phone call. Uh, they don't have to, though. They don't have to. If they believe in the mission and believe the goal, and if the core values align, they will. But they won't
Yeah.
do it for money. They won't do it for ownership. Like that's not in their realm. They're going to do it because they believe where you're going is worth their sacrifice.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's jump into your passionate business development.
Mm,
Um, like I said, well, let me touch on this. I, I mentioned earlier that you've made yourself available
mhm.
to anybody in the agency force. To uh, you know plan time on your calendar, and we'll just have a conversation. No strings
Correct.
attached.
Mhm.
Uh, why have you been so gracious with your time and your knowledge?
So every year I read the same book. I read a couple books the same year, but one of them is Awaken the Giant Within by Tony Robbins.
Mm.
Huge Tony Robbins fan. Uh, Again, there are some people that could listen to him speak and just say he's hokey, and that's fine. I could care less. But I have gotten so much value from his perspective on giving that I can't even begin to describe it.
Mm.
He tells a story uh, that many of your people in your audience have probably heard before, but it's about giving before you're ready. And I think he describes it as if you're not willing to give 10 cents out of the $1 you have in your name, you won't give 10 million when you have 100 million.
Mm.
And it's a very interesting concept. And you kind of laugh it off sometimes, but you're like, yeah, um, when I was dead broke, was I still giving? I was like, yeah, I was. And now that I have the means, I still am. I try to give way more with my time than I do with my money, because I think money, I give to local charities and we do all these other things, but it just doesn't go as far. I think I'd rather be a fisherman to some people to help them fish than give them fish.
Yeah.
So I try to make myself really available, because I wish when I was in someone's shoes that really needed an answer, I wish there was somebody that would just be like, hey, I got you. By the way, I'm not just going to give you the what I think to be advice on how to do it, but I'm down next week. Hey, like, so as an example, I had a phone call with an agent owner in Oregon. I believe it's from Oregon, last week or 2 weeks ago. Doesn't matter. And gave him some input on how I would present in his shoes, because he asked specifically, that was his question. He went through a specific scenario about, he's giving a really big presentation. He wanted some feedback. So I gave him the feedback. Now, I have a calendar reminder on the day that he gives the presentation, because I want to voice text him and I want to pump him up and just be like, hey, good luck. You know, you're going to do great. I want to give those kind of messages. So it's not a one-time relationship for me. I want to really build people up. And I have nothing to sell them.
Yeah.
I don't know. But to me, it's the right thing to do. I'm in the position where I have time to help other people be as successful as they can be with a specific set of skills. If somebody calls me and they're like, hey, I'm really struggling with my P&L, I'd love to get
Yeah, not your
I'd love to get your input on sales producer comp. I'm going to be like, got the wrong number, pal. But yeah, I stay right there and I give as much time as I can.
Yeah. And ultimately it's something you enjoy, right?
I love it.
I mean, and I think you're I think you're excellent at it. And you're always like, hey, I think you have a great, mind for business, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're willing to share, and it comes off as genuine. It's always solid advice, and it's candid and direct, right? Hey, take my advice. Don't. This is what I'd suggest. So I think you're excellent at it.
I think I owe it to people to be open and honest. I don't expect follow through though. Follow through is dependent on your own situation. But if you're calling for advice, I owe it to you to give you what I see. So I ask a lot of questions and I'm pretty direct. But when I look at the my background, like my dad's dad, there's so much entrepreneurship in my family. There's not going to be statues. We're not going to have buildings named after us, but we have a long lineage of entrepreneurship in our family. And I certainly hope Mason and Emma keep that going in their own right. But I just think my whole life I've been looking at how to solve problems, not how to list your problems. And my whole life I've been just thinking about, when something happens, I can be upset about it. I can be mad about it for a certain amount of time, but that time's got to go. And then we got to do. We have to get going. Like, I don't have a lot of time to sit here and complain about the fact that someone isn't referring me business. I got to go figure it out. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah. Talk about the concept you've mentioned about demystifying business development.
I just think people make it much more difficult than it might seem. I think your agency has to stand for something. And if it doesn't stand for something, you're going out and asking people to refer you because you're a nice guy, or, you're a nice girl, and nice gets you nowhere. But you got to be a little different, and you got to wear your freak flag. You got to have something weird about yourself. I've been obsessed for a long time about asking referral partners why they refer us. And the answer it becomes very tight when you start asking people why they refer you. Yes, they trust us. Yes, we do things on a speedy manner, but it's a lot like leadership. It's about being open and honest with what you're building, who you're becoming, and sharing problems and growing together with your referral partners. Uh, when Matt and I were really hustling out there, referral partners would come to us with business advice. They would come to us, asking for how they think that they should grow. And it was crazy that we were investing together and growing together. So ultimately, what I'm trying to say is you want referral partners that look a lot like you, because then the referrals are infinite. Whereas if we were trying to get 70, 80-year-olds to refer us the entire time, it would have been a nightmare. It would have been an absolute nightmare. I mean, it probably would have come via fax. So it wouldn't have been a good look. But we were really trying to develop solutions for a business owner that was between the ages of 25 to 50. We thought that those are the people that are really growing, that are investing in their business, that are like-minded like us and looking for solutions. And they didn't always work.
Yeah.
We had some awful business development ideas, awful, but we tried them. And
Yeah.
I could talk about those for hours too. But it's more interesting to talk about what didn't go right than what did go right. What did go right is already been written.
That's true of every business, though, right? I mean, not every idea is going to work. Not everything is going to pan out. There's going to be some bad ones. That's kind of how we figure stuff out and learn. I want to go. I'm sorry.
No, but I think people get tripped up exactly where you are right there. Is they spend so much time on the idea, and when the idea flops, they blame the referral partner. Or they blame, they say it's not going to work. And let me give you an example of something that Matt did. Like Matt made a gimmick. I won't go into what it is, but he created a prototype one time of something that he wanted to use to attract referral partners or to increase our brand. He didn't ask me. He just did it. And he brought it to me and I was like, this is silly. We shouldn't use it. It's not that I was right. It's just that was, I was just like, we can't do this. Matt didn't care. Like he just looked at it. I was like, oh, well, okay, whatever. And just kept going. Whereas like, heaven forbid, Matt had spent like 8 months on that and came to me with like this in-depth business plan about how to do this idea. No, just try it, man. Just like when we created the Babylon podcast, like we created that in like 3 minutes. We're like, we should record a podcast and just kind of go over the stuff we did. Okay, cool. Let's whiteboard it. Let's get it done. It's just, why not try it? Who cares? And then that gained crazy traction and we stayed with it. But there's a lot of things off that. Sorry, I'm going off tangents.
No, that's all right. That's perfect. I think I got a little better with that along the way of cutting bait on something that didn't, even if I invested a decent chunk of money in it.
Well, isn't the sign of success like how quickly you bounce back from failure? Now, people look at failure in a different way, but sometimes like, so my daughter this morning spilled an entire cup of like fruit juice all over her outfit. She spent forever on this outfit. My daughter is just like your typical 7-year-old girl. She's like, but she comes down to breakfast like ready to go. She looks incredible. And she spilled an entire cup of fruit juice on her body like about 15 minutes before she was going to the bus. And my daughter got upset. She spent some serious time on that outfit, but she just went upstairs and changed. And she came back down and she did her thing. And I looked at her and I was like, I was just like, I couldn't be more proud that she literally just put on a new outfit and kept it moving. Because there have been times where she has not. There has been times when all of a sudden we're bringing her 2 hours late to school. We're like, no, she doesn't have COVID. She's not sick. She's just got an outfit change, but this, it didn't happen today. And I looked at my wife before I left for this and I was like, I'm proud of her. Like that's cool. She just kind of moved on. And I think there's lessons in business about that.
Yeah. Let's jump into, because you like to also talk about building by a niche, and I think I could be wrong. That you mentioned this, that you feel like a lot of agents are doing it wrong. Did you have that feeling? And if so,
Yeah, I mean, having
how are
skill.
how are
Yeah.
we doing? How are you see some of us in the agency force that are in your view doing it wrong?
Well, let me define doing it wrong first, because I think some people are still saying their niche is customer service. Their niche is how friendly they are. Their niche is how long they've been in business. Their niche is the ties to their community. A niche, by my definition of niche, everyone has a different one. By
Yeah.
my definition of niche, that doesn't cut it. I think what people need to do when they define their niche is to truly understand who their competition is first.
Mm.
Meaning, if they didn't exist, what would their top level clients do? Or when someone is referred in, what are they comparing between? A lot of you and us, I was there too, think of our competition as like what's like really close by, or maybe we blame Geico, whatever we decide to do. But is that really your competition? A lot of times the competition is just staying where they are. A lot of times the competition is just no decision at all.
Mm.
And I think sometimes we forget that. So before you do anything, you have to really understand who the client is going to choose, if not you.
Mm.
Once you have that figured out, then you can determine what makes you different than the perceived competition. That's where you have to start before you even think about going to a niche, because you don't know what you're competing against yet. Matt and I's niche, just to be clear, when we first started, we got it wrong, way wrong. And I'd rather talk about that. We opened up. I still have the business plan. It's still in my closet. I look at it all the time. The business plan at the top, the marketing message was, we're giving Massachusetts residents choice for their insurance plans. We thought at age 25, because we were coming from Liberty
Correct.
Mutual.
That's right.
Okay. So we thought that when we opened an insurance agency, we were solving that problem, man.
Yep.
Like we were coming in being like, now all 7 million of you finally have choice because Matt and Zack opened. Like we were so stupid. But that was what we thought. And we started to get into it and we're like, oh no, like all the independent agents do that. And actually, truth be told, the first 8 months, or 6 months, we only had Mopfre. We only had one carrier. So I'm going to pivot to a really kind of a funny story off
Yeah.
that. We had Mopfre as the only carrier for the first 6 months because it was the end of a recession when we opened. So companies weren't appointing new agents. Sound familiar? It's called business cycles, kind of like now. Anyway,
Yeah.
so we opened then. We couldn't get any of our markets. We're like, wow, this marketing message really it's not really resonating because we only have one carrier. And we're like, okay, well, how do we get the mass fair plan? Like we need to get the mass fair plan as like a carrier so we can offer choice. So we called them and emailed them, And we're like, hey, we really want an appointment with you. How do we meet with you to determine if they're worthy? And they're like, you fax us an application for a piece of new business you want to write. We don't appoint agents. You just fax in the business. We're like, oh, gotcha. Yeah. Knew that all along. No problem. So listen, it's a journey. It's a journey, but
100%. And you figured it out. I mean, let's talk about your niche, and you're decided we want to be the best in the world at getting referrals. And we learned that here's what we're going to build it on, that most of these people like it fast and on time and under budget, as you put out there. So let's talk about how you built that, how we are going to get all these referral partners to get all these leads. What are some ways that you decided that we're going to do this?
So it started with just understanding the mortgage market.
Yeah.
Just understanding. So I didn't own a home at the time. I had never gotten a mortgage. So I had a ton of questions because I didn't understand it. Matt and I we had a couple mortgage brokers that were sending us some stuff, very low frequency, just something basic. But we realized we really liked being available in the home buyer process because the mortgage agents typically said, just go to your current insurance agent and just get a binder for home. That was what they did back in the day. Or they still do, actually, a lot of them. Now, when you think through that, we understood our competition. Our competition is the current auto insurance broker. That's the competition. Right there, we knew. Okay, because they're not referring to other insurance agents. So we developed an entire marketing strategy on why that's just plain wrong. And I think that's a phrase, just plain wrong, that insurance agents should figure out. So we would educate the mortgage lender on why that's just plain wrong, on examples specifically about why you should not refer to the auto insurance agent. So we created a problem. And the mortgage lenders looked at that and said, "Oh my God, I've actually kind of been doing this wrong for a while. I'm doing a disservice to my client by doing that." And we're like, "No kidding." And you know how you can fix that. And so we would kind of transitioned into referring. So we created a problem that actually was true. It is a problem that you shouldn't just go back and refer to the mortgage, refer to the auto broker. So that's how it started. And then we kind of demystified and we started to think to ourselves, all right, I really want to get the mortgage lender to refer me. Like that's the goal. But we kind of related it to dating. Back in college or when you were kind of pursuing whomever, if you saw if an attractive girl at the bar that you wanted to talk to, I don't know about you, but it didn't go well for me if I walked directly up to that girl and tried to persuade her that I was worth a conversation. I think I batted 0% if I did that. So that's kind of like going directly to the mortgage broker who has what you want and saying, "Hey, have you checked me out over here? This business over here? Have you checked out Brad's insurance agency? Like, God, we look good. How about you and I get together?" Like the mortgage broker's like, "Get away from me, you slime."
Yeah.
Like that's great. I came to the bar to get a drink. I didn't come to meet an insurance agent. Okay. So the right way to do it is to meet her friends. Is her friends to tell her, like, "Hey, this guy's pretty cool. You should meet this guy." And I'm serious. Like that's how you probably should try to meet the person at the bar. So we tried to do the same thing in business development. Now, who are the mortgage brokers' friends? Realtors.
Yeah.
Realtors. So we became the most well-known insurance agents to realtors we could possibly become. We were at every single party, every single event, everything we could do. We tried to get in with all of the real estate owners that own the companies and this, that, and the other. We tried to be everywhere. And these mortgage lenders would see us all the time with their
Best
realtors.
friend.
Yeah. And then they would be like, "Who are these guys?" So I had the amount of conversations I had with my direct target market, my mortgage loan lenders that would walk up to me and be like, "Hey, so what real estate company are you with?" And I'm like, "I'm not. I'm not. Thanks for asking." And that's typically how we would meet these people. Is we became so popular in the market that they needed to grow their business that eventually we just became part of the team.
Yeah. And from what my perspective, you guys just 10x that, right? And then how can we get more? And talk about some of the creative ways that you've connected with realtors, loan officers. Like you said, it wasn't just walking straight up to them.
No, God, no.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm 5'9". They probably wouldn't even see me. They just tower over me. Like, who is this? A little hobbit. But we did a lot of things. I mean, I'll get into the bobbleheads in a sec. We did handwritten notes. We did a lot of cold outreach. We tried anything we could. We did some speaking, but what really worked for us was the bobblehead campaign. That is no secret. There's no secret. So the bobblehead campaign, I've told this story before, but in our first year of business, Matt's wife and my wife kind of got together and made us bobbleheads of ourselves. And they gave it to us and they said, like, congrats on 1 year of business. We liked The Office and stuff like that, where they had bobbleheads. And so we had those little bobbleheads. We took them to a real estate conference many of real estate conferences that we went to, because we bought booths for real estate, by the way. Awful idea to have a booth at a real estate conference, like terrible idea.
Yeah.
People would walk around our booth like,
Yeah.
ooh, I don't want to touch that.
Yeah.
So what we ended up doing, because we were so offended that nobody would walk up to our booth, was we put our bobbleheads down with business cards in front of it and we left. And then we not left the conference. We made connections. We went over and we just chatted with people. We came back and there was a realtor holding our bobbleheads to his friends. His name was Joe. And he was like, look at this. Like, this thing's so cool. And we're like, it's a placeholder. No, he's like, no, can I get one? And we're like, you want one? He's like, yeah, I want one of me. And we're like, sure, you can get one.
Yeah.
So that ticked an idea of like, wow, like they want one. So again, talk about an idea going all in. Matt and I were having a couple scotches and we were just like, it'd be kind of cool to just get a bunch of these. So we had, I think our first order was like a couple hundred. I forget how many, doesn't matter, but these were about $100 a pop. You can already tell how we got into debt. This happens like really fast. So we bought a couple hundred of these and we shipped them blindly to people we hadn't met before. We wrote a note in there saying, welcome to the Bobblehead Club. You've been bobbleheaded, or whatever we said. And we said, our only ask is you get a cup of coffee with us after you get this. And we just shipped them blindly to 100 of the best or 200 of the best mortgage loan officers in the state. And then we showed up at every single doorstep. About a day after it was delivered, I got every single meeting except for one. His name is Joe. Not the same guy. I'll never forget him. But we got every single meeting. And then we just had to be different and make sure that they cared, and it was off to the races. It was the easiest start to a business development campaign. The easiest start. I mean, imagine you're just sitting there one day and this box comes up and it's a woodenized statue of you.
Yeah.
And the only ask is like, just get a cup of coffee with me. Like Brad's opinion of this insurance agency is, one, they're different.
Yeah.
Two, they're super creative, right?
Yeah.
Like, this is very unique. It's not a pen. It's not chocolate. It's not whiskey. And you don't have an ask of me, because you're not asking for my personal insurance. You're just asking for my clients.
Yeah.
It's easy. So it was off to the races.
Talk about supporting this program on the back end of things, because you have to get your team to buy in and understand the importance of this is what we do. This is how we do it. How was the buy-in from your team were you, because one thing I was not great at early on was being transparent with where I wanted to go.
Sure.
And how I wanted things.
It's scary, right? I mean, growth is sexy to the entrepreneur, but growth also comes with a lot of pain. Yeah. It comes with, growth is messy. There's no other way to say it.
Yes.
So we understood that there would be pain and it would be messy. Most people were excited because there's a lot of leads coming in, and we took advantage of that, and we had great parties and this, that, and the other. But there were tough moments, of course, many tough moments where we questioned, like, is this worth it? Because we're growing like a weed, but we're not very profitable.
Yeah.
And agencies love to tout their profitability and this, that, and the other. I wasn't on a stage to talk about that. No way. We were lean, we were mean, and we were growing ridiculously fast. And if you wanted to be a part of that, it was really fun. In fact, oddly enough, tonight, our OG team, I think like 10 to 15 of them are all getting together for drinks in Worcester. Yeah. I mean, like they still hang out. Cool. And I think they're probably like, man, we barely survived. But it was fun. I mean, so when we hired, to answer your question a little bit more directly, the hiring process, we really had to make sure, like, we described this is like what we're trying to do. This is where we're going. Things change a lot. And I think one of our core interview topics was like, we change often.
Yeah.
You're going to have to do a lot of different jobs here. But what we can guarantee is that we're growing, we're on magazine covers, we're doing things really well. But if you don't like change, like this isn't the place for you. I mean, you got 2 30-year-olds like running the company. I mean, if stability is your core value, it's not here. It's not here.
Which is, I mean, thank goodness you were able to understand that and convey that message, because one of the things I was thinking was how much you guys had this business plan from the very beginning. By the way, I know I mentioned to you, just about anybody that I've connected with on the agency side that has grown a large business, they had a plan. It didn't happen by happenstance. They went for it. They had a strategy that they went for.
Sure.
How much did you guys have to adapt and pivot from your plan and go this way?
So often. I mean,
were you and Matt always aligned? Well, no,
no way.
Silly question. I can't believe I'm going to ask that.
No, I had to explode on that one. Absolutely not. Are you kidding me? So, okay, let's think about it a different way.
Yeah.
Let's say that you are building a ship and you're getting ready to take off and you need crew members, and you go into the local bar back in, like, dating us a couple 100 years back, and you're like, hey, I need help. I'm going to go across the Atlantic. They're like, where are you going? Like, I need help. I need people to like, where are we going? You're like, well, your job is going to be to row. And you're like, okay, but where are we going? You're like, well, can you row? You're like, we're not speaking correctly. Like we're not having a good conversation. You're going to the bar, being like, I need a strong rower. And they're like, where are we going? So we thought about that story a lot, because it's so much better to get a person who's adaptable, that you can train, that's interested, that's a believer, that's fun, that has our core values that we had back in the day. Like, we have fun together and all these other things that we had. I would so much rather that than someone who's just an excellent CSR. That didn't really interest me back then. Right. So yes, we talked a lot about what we were trying to do, where we were trying to go. So that's part one. Part two, Matt and I disagreed often. Yeah. Very, very often. What we didn't disagree on is what we were trying to become. But we disagreed all the time on how to get there. He was right, I was right, we both were wrong. Who knows? Some of the best ideas might have been the ones that I personally canned. I don't know. But we looked at it and we said, you know what, for most decisions, if we're both not in, we're not doing it. So sometimes I had to trust that his idea was right. And when we played it out, pretty much always was. And sometimes he had to trust that I was right. And we just I don't have a really good answer for that, other than I believed in our partnership more than I cared about my belief in him.
Yeah. I think you said something there is very insightful, which is you didn't necessarily look for the best CSR candidate. You looked for the right person.
Yeah.
And adapting is huge. I mean, for any of us. So that's something to really hone in on throughout the hiring process.
Yeah. It's you need skills, part one, but at what cost to the agency? At what cost? I remember we fired somebody one day into their employment. 1 day. That was our record. So, everyone says, oh, you got to hire slow and fire fast. I'm like, how fast have you actually fired someone? I'm curious. Because I'm not trying to break your record here, but if you say you want to fire fast, how fast was it? If you went to your team today, not you personally, but I'm saying someone listening, if you went to your team today and said, the last person you let go that didn't fit your core values, the last person that you let go, if you went to your team and say, hey, do we fire that person quick enough? I guarantee they say no. I guarantee it. because they're going to be like, no, you should have done it months ago. Like
I'd say no.
Yeah, of course. And I'd say no for a lot of people too. But when Matt and I realized it, that we lived by that, was that one person we fired. There was a specific person, I won't name names, that came to us and said, this is egregious what this person did. And we let them go that day.
Yeah.
And that's kind of when I knew Matt and I were getting to be better leaders.
Yeah. I want to touch on something we talked a little bit about in a previous